You are listening to an exclusive interview on Bass Musician Magazine. The interview starts now.
Hey everybody, this is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with bassist Cheikh Ndoye.
Hey, Raul. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you for taking time to chat with us. For those of you that have been following Bass Musician Magazine, you've seen Cheikh on our September 2011 cover. He did an interview with our previous editor, Jake Cott. He was part of the Brent Anthony Jackson part, Why Music Matters. And of course, time flies when you're having fun. And in 7 years, Cheikh has been, of course, very busy and doing stuff. And so we're going to want to get caught up. But one thing that I noticed that in all of our conversations in the past, I don't think that we've had a real opportunity to get back to your roots. Cheikh, how did you get started in music? Because if I remember correctly, you started on piano. But tell us a little bit about your journey as a musician.
Yeah, I am. First of all, I'm originally from Senegal, and for people that don't know where Senegal is, it's in the west of Africa, and I kind of grew up there. And there's a lot of culture, a lot of music going on there, and pretty much what you just said. I started playing piano. That was my first instrument because like parents used to buy you toys. Started playing a little bit and started getting serious, And from there, my first, not saying encounter, but just hearing one of the greatest album, Weather Report album, 830, I believe, that's what it was. And I was, definitely attracted to Jacko's sound and, the harmonic development of, the Weather Report. So that's how I started being interested in the low end bass, From there, here I am sitting here.
And how did you manage to get a hold of a bass? Because I know many times I myself started on accordion, and the Beatles came out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't play Beatles music on the accordion. So my first guitar, actually, somebody lent me one. I borrowed one for a couple of months, and when my mom saw that I was going to be serious enough, then we kind of got a secondhand guitar. So how did you go on to getting a bass from a piano?
Well, this is the thing, actually. Back home, at that time, I don't know about now, but it was very difficult to get an instrument like a regular bass. Even like for strings, if you have a concert, you'd go and borrow a string from a friend of yours if you don't. So, but, I didn't own a bass at that time. So I was going to a friend of mine, going to his house. His name is Cherno, going to his house, learning, just being curious about the instrument. So that's how I started borrowing instrument from him to play. And it took me a while before I actually owned a bass, believe it or not. So it took me a little while, maybe at least 2 to 3 years into playing bass. So I was just pretty much daily borrowing the instrument, or just walk to my friend's house and then, practice and come back home. So, and I used to kind of like own an accordion, just like what you were saying too. I have an accordion, but a little one to play too, if you getting into it. However, I had like an acoustic guitar, I would put just 4 strings on them and practice, and pretty much, from there, that's how I got into really, serious being, able to just learn things, online. So.
And from what I understand, also you're very much self-taught.
Oh yeah. A lot of the things, up to a point from when I was back home. But when I came to the U.S. To study, I was doing computer science at school, and then music. So that's when I got into the music program and started learning. But yeah, definitely I was self-taught, yeah. And I couldn't help because I had to be, I was in a jazz ensemble, and I needed to learn how to read. So the conductor was saying to me, he was a bass player, and he was telling me, well, you can play, but you have to learn to read because we will need to, put some charts in front of you. So I had to spend a lot of time and to work on my reading skill, yeah.
Well, and it's one of the challenges with music, and I think it's very similar to language, when we learn a language, we learn to speak it, and
Yeah,
it's very practical. We hear, we speak. With music, when you have ears, you
yeah,
hear the music and you can reproduce some of the things that you're hearing.
yeah.
And many times, when you've come to depend on your ears so much, reading gets difficult because you're like, why should I read this? Because I can hear what I need to play until things get complex.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. I'm going to tell you a little story. I play with a piano player. He's on my album, Arshak Sirunyan,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much played on both of his albums. And incredible music, but you really have to read it in order to be able to play that because some parts are very complex. Just hearing it, it's different. Like you think you're playing the right notes, but not the case, when you're sitting in front of the charts. So, and that's an important, I mean, both have advantage, listen, the ear and then also, the reading aspect.
Kind of coming forward again, your first album you released in 2011. That was your debut album.
Hmm.
And this year, you are releasing Sons of Africa.
Yeah, Sons of Africa. So Sons of Africa, it's been a while that I've been trying to get to that album. I mean, 7, 8 years. I've been trying to just get it done. So, and it was very difficult because I was playing all over the place and touring, and so it was quite a challenge for me to get the material and get the musicians to work on it. But finally, last year, I had some time off, and we just went get it done. So, and it's an album that is actually it's a tribute to the children of Africa and all over the world, pretty much. Lots of great musicians in that album. So,
Very cool. Well, part of what I noticed is that, and I appreciate very much
hmm.
the rich musical heritage of the African roots.
Yeah,
And there are parts of it, you've got a horn section, you've got full percussion with, yes, there's a drum kit, but there's congas and there's minor percussion. There is, I thought I heard balafon, but it looks like that may be keys
probably Keith.
sounding like balafon.
Yeah,
You have a kora in one of the songs in Carrie, and I've had the privilege of seeing a kora firsthand. One of
yeah.
the bassist for one of the Cirque shows, Peter Fan, plays kora too,
Oh,
and he explained to us the whole story and how he had to go to Africa
hmm.
and live with his family
Yeah.
to play kora. And it's an insane instrument. I look at it going, oh my gosh, you know, everybody that makes a big fuss over having more than four strings,
Yeah.
if they look at a kora, they should lose their mind.
Bora is a very fascinating instrument. I mean the guy that played on in the musician that played in that record is Jakuba Sissoko. He lives in New York. He's a great kora player. He's an incredible kora player. So I really always wanted to include some of the exotic instruments from Africa,
Mm-hmm.
which the kora and then also the other instrument that I played, the ngoni, both of them. And so it was an interesting mix. It was for me. It was an incredible experience because I was able to. I traveled to Senegal actually. My manager traveled to Senegal to. We got all that stuff together with the percussion and get it done. So and we wanted to get the original sounds from the guys from back home, and an incredible experience.
Yeah. And the tuning alone, the kora I saw didn't even have tuning keys. It was using like a leather thong, and I'm going, this is a lot of like monofilament and
It's much harder to tune when you don't have, all the knobs and all that stuff. But nowadays, most of the choral players they have knobs that they're using all that, in order to stay in tune. But the beauty about those instruments is they kind of slightly out of tune a little bit, when they play them, and that's the beauty about hearing those exotic instruments from Africa. Doesn't necessarily have to be quite in tune. They use skin and all that stuff, that is stretches. We were talking about that, and always a challenge to have it stay in tune.
This is probably a good spot to talk a little bit about the ngoni that you were mentioning. Tell us. I saw the demo video. It
Yeah.
is a bass, but it is fretless. And tell us about this instrument.
Well, let me tell you, man. Since the first time I actually put that video, a lot of people were asking me about the instrument. What is this? Where does the instrument come from? Can I get one? I'm like, I'm gonna have to travel back home to get you one. Like, it's not gonna be easy. It's not easy to get it. So this one is particularly from Mali. They made it. It's a custom made. The instrument is called ngoni. It's ngoni, and it doesn't have to be a three-string instrument. I made it a three-string instrument. So it can be up to five, six strings. And the bass is very actually rare. This bass is very rare in Africa. You would see the other one called khalam. It's XALAM, khalam. And that's the one that you will see a lot in Africa, not this kind of like the bass. And this particular bass it's pretty close to upright sound. I want to say that because it's very kind of huge sound, pretty short. The notes are short, so that but it's close to like a bright sounding bass.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been playing it for a while. I've actually offered Richard one too. I gave Richard Bono one too, and I'm not sure if he's playing his or not, but he has one of these, and it's a beautiful instrument. I played it on the record. This song called Jolie, Jolie.
Mm-hmm.
As you saw it on that video, the demo video as well. So I love it. I've been playing it for a while, and I play anything on it. I can play standards.
Mm-hmm.
I tune it in fourth. Pretty much, I have the EA D on that, and I have another one that actually we're working on that is going to be a four string, just like a regular bass. But it's hard to play. It's not played like a bass. So I tell people, you can try it out, but it's not like a bass. The way the notes are aligned, they're not pretty much, they're kind of like a little far from each other. I don't know how to explain that. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost, the neck is kind of like round. So it's not going to be like a regular instrument. The notes are not where you think they are, when you play bass. So you have to get into that mindset and be used to it.
Does it use a wood? It's a wood frame that the skin is stretched over.
Yeah, it is a wood. It's all wood, and there's just like one little bridge here.
Okay.
And I modified it because I don't know if you know the K and K sound, like the preamp.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend from New York based work, David Siegel, so modified it and then added like all this electronic stuff on it, and it looks pretty. So, and it sounds really nice. So I'm using a preamp, a K&K preamp on that, just to get that sound out.
And going back to Sons of Africa, there is a great variety, upbeat tempos, and the sounds and the arrangements
Mhm.
are just exquisitely complex with a syncopated the tempos and things. I relate to it a lot because I lived in the Caribbean.
Right.
So a lot of the Afro-Antillian, and you have things that resonate to me like Latin percussion, which I know come from Africa. So
Yes.
the roots are there, but for me, I'm going, oh, this is very familiar.
Yeah.
But they're just very, very comprehensive and complex and exquisite, which is one of the things I really appreciate about
Right.
world music. You wrote all of the tunes.
Well, yeah, all of the tunes except the Jaco Pastorius Continuum. I just wanted to showcase pretty much the wealth of Africa when it comes to rhythm and
Mhm.
culture, different people to experience that, and I wanted to add a lot of percussion and a lot of different type of rhythm that existed. Unfortunately, I was not able to put everything in one CD because it's too many things, too many ideas. So I was able to achieve this with some of my really good friends like Raul Pineda, drum from Cuba. That's why you hear that Latin influence in that. The piano player from Armenia, Arshak. So I was just able to kind of put all that together. And some musicians from Africa as well. One of the tunes called Little Uli, it was inspired from this rhythm called Nawa, from Morocco, Algeria, that Northern Africa. Mm-hmm. And you would hear an influence like Karim Ziad. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the drummer Karim Ziad. So yeah, it's kind of like it's a Northern African, in 12/8 pretty much, 6/8, 12/8, that right. So that's what it was based. A lot of the tunes are on that. Obviously, the local music from Senegal is called mbalax. It's Mbalax, and that was part of it. Where they never play the one, they always skip the one they play. So sometimes you're like, "Where's the one?" It's that's just the way it is back home. A lot of the music rhythm. So I just wanted to give like just a little perspective to people how I hear music as far as like a variety. I try to play a lot of different styles, not limit myself in one thing. So, and obviously if you heard the last track, it's completely different. It's like the trio. It's just like more of a jazz kind of trio. Just to showcase the variety, just a range of what I'm influenced with, like the music that I listen to daily basis. So
part of with the video that I was watching, I saw that you actually have an additional bassist, Dave Segal, playing.
Yes, Dave Segal is an incredible friend of mine, and he's the owner of New York Bass Work.
Okay.
So I've been playing this bass for a while. It's 5-string Cremona bass. I know David. I'm trying to figure out how I knew David through a friend of mine. JC Boissy is a bass player who told me about the instrument, and then obviously Richard Bona was the one who connected me to Dave Segal. Mm-hmm. And Dave, actually, we became friends, and he made some New York bass work for me, incredible basses. And I invited him down to Blues Alley and come to play with me at Blues Alley in Washington, D.C. So we had, an opportunity to record some videos. And I was like, why don't we play bass? It's like 2 bass players. I'm like, yeah, of course, let's do it. So we had like this horn section, and my good friend Karen Briggs on violin. Mm-hmm. A lot of the musicians that I work with. We had a great time. It was fun. 2 basses.
So how do you work the dynamics of 2 basses? Because both of you could be playing either the same things, or you could have somebody laying down the groove and somebody adorning over the top of it. How did you work that?
Sometimes it's good to try different, just experiment. That's what I was doing. I knew that both of us, either one of us could play the parts. But for me, it was just more of a sharing and, just playing different parts. When you look at the video, there's only one song, I think, where I was playing, you could see I was playing on the higher range and higher register, and then he was playing the lower register. But it was just to do it for fun, and try different things. But as far as arrangement, I usually do just regular bass and play most of the parts. When you listen to actually most of my recordings, there's not too many overdub of basses, so you will hear just like a regular track. That's it most of the time. But Dave Segal is an incredible bass player too, besides a builder. So he's an incredible musician. I like to share with bass players and explore. So, pretty much.
On the video, the whole band was in the same room. When you recorded the CD, did you have everybody playing in that gets tricky for the engineering, because you have, especially with percussion, you could have a lot of bleed over because you've got stronger sounds, and then when the horns are going,
in general, I really try to not. I love doing live recordings, which I've done most of it on the first album. Most of it recorded in LA. But no, I didn't do that this time because there were not enough time to record everything. It's very challenging, man. It's super challenging, especially if you want to have all these instruments, these exotic instruments, and everybody trying to play at the same time, and it's difficult to do it. So I wanted everybody to just take their time and record at least some of the tracks. It came out good. It came out. I had a great engineer, Dennis Moody. He lives in LA, who actually mixed that record, and it came out really nice, incredible.
Yeah, we know Dennis has got a few books out on his engineering and things, so we've seen a fair amount of stuff from him. This is probably a good point to talk about how you get your sound and the gear in particular. And of course, we talked about the ngoni a little bit. You mentioned New York Bassworks.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about your 5-string. You've got a piccolo bass behind you. I'm sure everybody's been looking at the whole time going, what's going on there? Tell us more about your gear.
As far as basses, I have a 5-string Cremona bass that I play regularly. And also, this is another bass of mine, which is just a piccolo bass. So I use that on my album, Sons of Africa. Very light gauge, and so sound like a guitar, almost. Mm-hmm. And I use it a lot. And once in a while, I actually just switch it to regular bass when I tour with another artist named Baba Mal from Africa. So when I tour in Europe and all that, so I use the other one. It's much easier, much more comfortable,
Sure.
In that setting to use it. I use Aguilar gears, SL 410s, the new ones that came out. I love the Aguilar because they're very light and incredible tone. I barely EQ my sound. I'm always playing flat. With that
strings.
Yeah, I have. I use DR strings, so I'm with DR, and I use the low beam strings. I kind of tend to switch up though my gauges. I don't know if you know Anthony, so I usually call him and bug him and say, "Hey, Anthony, man, I need this gauge." I always mix things. I like to have my low B tight, so a little heavier gauge. Like 130. So try to mix and match, and that's the way that I actually usually get my tone. Because the style that I play with. I don't know if you notice it. I use pretty much all my four fingers when I play most of the time, and I use this kind of muting technique. So I'm into looking into what gears that I'm going to use to project the sound that I have.
I noticed you have a ramp on your bass as well. We see quite a few players like Gary Willis. It certainly affects a lighter touch instead of digging in.
Yes, it absolutely does. Well, let me tell you, for me, that background came from the influence of this instrument that we talked about, the khalam, which is almost like the ngoni. When you look at the way that they play, they use their four fingers, and it's almost like their hands are like this. They curve it, and laying it on the string. And for me, I wanted to kind of get into that, and so I asked David if I could have a ramp and try it out and see if it worked. And I also do, some chord work. It's easier that way when you have, try to do certain things. I love it, love using the ramp.
Any other supporting stuff? Do you use pedals, special cables, anything else that's giving you your sound?
Well, I'll tell you first, what's really important for me right now is also one of the most important things that comes along with the bass, protecting my bass, is my Reunion Blues gig bags. I love the Reunion Blues bags, and especially traveling nowadays for musicians, it can be a little hectic, and so I always get away with my double. Don't say that to anybody, but to the airlines. But I travel with 2-3 basses, and nobody knows. So I just use my double bass gig bag.
Nice.
From Reunion Blues gig bag. And I really love it. So it's perfect. So that's an important thing for me. I rarely use pedals, I just volume pedals. I was using some of the electro-harmonics too, but the POG, I use those too once in a while. Pretty much. And cables, I use the Pig Hog cables. The Pig Hog cables are really incredible, really nice, well made. So, bass players should check it out. It's a great great product. They're making really great product and clear tone, sound, and everything. In general, my whole gear thing is I try to do what really project my sound, and what's making it really work is the ones that I have. So the Aguilar gears and tone hammer and all that. The DV750 head.
From what I'm gathering, again, it's also kind of the type of music that the musician plays. With a lot of the rock players, pedals if they're looking for distortion or chorus or something. And then with other musicians, they're getting the sound from their hands or from the wood that is in their bass or from the gauge of the strings. I mean, there's all of those subtle details. You should we'll have to have Anthony make a signature set.
Yeah. The fingers it's a really important thing. Your fingers, because gears are there. They're important to have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to this, your that's where the tone and everything that goes along with your instrument, right? So it's another important aspect, not just looking at gears or not just looking at your fingers. It's a combination of things. So to make it work, all of that. And that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about all these. My bass. I love this bass. It's just like something that I'm just attached to it, and it's an incredible instrument. So for me, it works for me. So and I think a lot of bass players, they should check it out because they make some incredible instruments. Yeah.
With the new CD, I was looking. Since we just started 2018. I know that I looked at your tour dates. The only one on there right now is Bass Bash in Anaheim.
Yeah,
That's something we're looking forward to. Do you have any plans after that? They're not on your site yet, but
they're not on my site. I'm about to update it, but I want to keep that for there's some really great stuff coming up. Great projects are coming up this year with some incredible names, and I kind of don't want to jump into it right now. So, but I will. I'll let you know when the time comes. But there are a lot of great things that are coming up. Projects that I'm doing with some, incredible musicians, like collaborating.
Oh, perfect. And if people want to know, because now that you told them you're not going to tell us, they're going to want to know. The best place to look is CheikhnDoye.com.
Yes, that's what it is. CheikhnDoye.com.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go to my Facebook page, so be able to find information there.
Excellent. And I always like to ask because you've got so much going on. And I talk to bass musicians that are at different stages in their career. I talk to people that have been playing for 40 years. I recently spoke to one that has been playing like a year and a half.
Yeah.
What advice, because you've gone this distance in the journey, you're very busy, things are humming and buzzing.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for a young musician in order to try to follow in your footsteps and be successful?
What I always say is, musicians, just keep playing and be out there. You got to be out there to play. So it doesn't matter what style of music you're playing. You have to be out there all the time, and go to jam sessions and learn from everybody. That's what it is. That's the goal. And listen to as much many different style of music as you can. So because that's what's going to open the doors. Being able to play a lot of different styles will expose you to different, just like a different opportunity. So pretty much for me, that's what it is. Keep going out, playing, and then learn as much as you can. From it doesn't have to be bass. It can be any instrument. Try to learn from anybody. Yeah.
Well, as long as you're not looking at a kora, which when you look at, you're going, I could never learn how to play this instrument.
I'm trying to play the kora on bass. It's just, it's an incredible instrument. Just, sitting in front of somebody that can really play it, it's mesmerizing.
I agree. I think that's very good advice. I know we had a conversation with Antona Lamasa a
Hmm.
couple of NAM shows ago, and she had mentioned that somebody had come up to her and introduced themselves as a YouTube star,
Oh
and
wow.
it's one of the things that is, there's a lot of good things with social media and the computer and all this stuff, but it cannot substitute the human interaction, and this is the valuable part. And I think when we go back even
Yeah.
far into the history
Hmm.
of music, and you go
Yeah.
back and you look at Africa and the richness it is, that interaction with people, with other people,
Yeah.
that gives it the value and the language, and that sharing the experience and being able to
Yeah.
everybody come together and produce something and a common good. And I
Right.
I believe that the world needs more people
Oh,
coming together and
yeah.
working towards a common result,
Yep. Exactly.
because you could not have musicians playing,
Yeah.
I want to play my song while you play your song. That's just not going to work. Everybody's got to work together.
Absolutely. It's like back home where people, do drum circles and
Yeah.
they all come together. And the funny thing is like you don't have to be a musician, but you can just come in the circle and play with everybody, so and play a part and the other one play the other part. So and you can hear the big picture, how big that sounds, and how strong that sounds. So that tells you that people need to come together, and that's the best way of making things move ahead. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to mention one thing on the album. I mean, I'm really grateful to have all those incredible, there's so many musicians that I wanted to get part of the album, but because of time, it was not really. But I was able to get a bunch of musicians like Mike Stern who played on it, a couple of tracks with the Continuum. And finally, was able to do something with that track, the Continuum, Jaco Pastorius, which was an incredible. Jaco is one of the, uh, most incredible musicians that I know, not just bass as a composer and everything. So I wanted to highlight, one of his songs, Continuum, which I had Mike Stern played on that, and it was really incredible. So Raul Pineda is, master drummer, and Arshak, and bunch of other musicians, in that record.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Sheikh, we appreciate you taking time from a very busy schedule. We're so excited, and I'm very grateful for you sharing your music with us. Because not just because of all of the history and the background, but because of your interpretation of it. You are bringing it to life, and you are exposing it to people who maybe have never had the opportunity to hear. Just the tempos alone,
Yeah.
you just go, what is that?
For me, Bass Musician Magazine, people like you are helping put making what we do possible. So without you guys, it's definitely not possible. So for Bass Musician Magazine, I mean, for all these years, for the support, for all these musicians, and putting their stuff out there for people to discover and hear, it's an important aspect. It's one of the biggest things that we musicians need. So
Why, thank you.
we
I
appreciate.
When we started, my teacher, and interesting, Jake Cott was my teacher for some time.
Wow.
He used to ask me if I knew who this bass player was, or I knew who this other, and I
Yeah.
didn't know who anybody was, almost, it seemed, and other than Paul McCartney or
Yeah.
Sting, guys that you always saw in the
Yeah.
front,
Mhm.
but they were exceptions. And
Yeah.
there was so much amazing music, and we've been very blessed in being able to share the stories of the bassists who
Yeah.
sometimes they're in front, sometimes they're just back in the corner, but
Yeah.
it is their touch
Yeah.
that gives that music the feeling that it has, and it goes well beyond your ears. It's you feel it here, you feel you feel it in your chest, and it elicits emotions. It
Yeah, absolutely, it does. It does, and that's an important thing. Like what you say, the touch and the feeling. How you making people feel about your music and all that. It's an incredible experience. But putting it out there and exposing it.
mhm.
People from the bass player. There are so many great talent out there. It's incredible. Like every day, like there's somebody that I see, and I'm like, well, who's this? just burning, incredible musicians
Mm-hmm.
for the world, and the world need that right now. So we need more music, more healing and all that. So very important.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. We are so looking forward to all the exciting things that are going to come. People, you've seen it here. Cheikh Ndoye coming to you live on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thanks for basing out with us here on BassMusicianMagazine.com.